A while back, it seems like an eternity now. I remember I was young, I don't know how young. Someone gave me a hint, but it felt out of context and I didn't quite understand it, what they wanted or what they mean by that. I don't know. Sometimes people keep things um, uh, on the back and they sometimes say it and it's a bit out of context and you're like, hey, you've been thinking about it, but you haven't found a way to, put it out there that's in context. So it feels a bit odd. So sometimes this can be, bad for the, people learning, for the learning experience. It has to have context. It has to have a meaning and the right place at the right time. Um, so someone said to me, stopping is dying, they said, but it was off context and I didn't quite get it. I was like, yeah, sure, stopping is dying. I was young. It went over my head, as most things do to young people. So I think I know what it means nowadays that stopping is dying. Nowadays, I've become forcefully sedentary. I wasn't at all, that's the opposite of me. I was always very active ever since I can remember. In nowadays standards, people would say I had ADHD or something. I just couldn't stand still. I was always thinking outside the classroom. I was always trying, imagining myself climbing up trees. I don't know, going over mountains because I loved BTT. What's it called in English? I don't know. The mountain bicycle. I love that. I was always, where can I find the best track? What's the part I haven't explored yet? I was always thinking of those. I don't know, I just didn't want to be still. I just wanted to move and do things and make things happen. Yeah. So classroom was very, very bad. So it didn't went well for me in school, of course. And so I got a job, a very active job, constantly on the move, outdoors, yeah, outdoors, exposed to the elements. My favorite. I wasn't afraid of anything. Still, I'm still not, but back then I had 100%, my health, so it wasn't no big deal. But nowadays, it's not the case, and I was kind of forced to become a bit sedentary um, because things happen in life, and now I'm forced to become sedentary, and I've been spending too much time because I kind of get immersed in books or behind the computer, and I kind of lose track of things, and I'm spending too much time, in a stop, idle. I'm stop. I'm what's the expression? I am frozen, doing something for long periods of time, and this is mirroring my health. Yeah, the body literally starts dying away when you stop moving, when you stop walking those necessary paces. There's a certain necessary paces we have to do every day. uh, when you stop doing those, the body starts dying because it's through movement that the body detox itself, you know. And of course, it is through movement that your muscles stay active. The muscles is the most healthy thing of the body. If you keep healthy muscles, it will reflect the rest. The muscles, they store energy, and it can be used as rest or in times of need. You can also store fat, but depends on the type of fat. You know, it's better to rely on muscle, at least for men, right? Women have a different type of fat than men. I can't remember right now the proper appellation, but it has to do with passing the right nutrients or the right hormones to the baby. It has to do with milk. I can't remember right now, but that specific fat around the chest and the hips, that form that hourglass. That fat is the reason why we are attracted to it is because it produces good milk for the children, for their development. And interestingly, just for the information, when the first child is born, it's going to deplete those reserves, and the mother's going to require some 5 years to come back to normal. So traditionally, those who were wise would have a period of 5 years between pregnancies. You know, anyway, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Sorry for the tangent. So let's go back to the topic. So stopping is dying. It will also reflect on the quality of your sleep. Yes, because I've become sedentary and my body is pretty much, breaking apart. Um, I have to do certain exercises. I haven't, hired a professional. Pretty much everybody is useless because they lack, I don't know, professionalism. Uh, I've tried, but most are simply idiots. Yeah, they're idiots. They, instead of having hands, it's like they have, something else attached to it. They can't really do anything. They are in the wrong area. That's the thing. They are in the wrong area. Physical therapists have to have a certain sensibility to them to understand the patients. And most people are not in the good area of health. They just did that because, I don't know, they are those types who just want an easy life. But so it's very hard to find someone who's in the right area around nowadays. Corporatism is running the world. It means everybody will be in the wrong area. Corporatism forces people to do things they don't want, and it distorts reality, basically. So it's not a very harmonious society. It will create lots of passive aggressiveness because nobody is in the right area. Yeah, nobody's in the right area. Um, Nobody's in the right place, frequenting the right job, the right people. They are forced. They are forced to do things that they are not supposed to be doing. They are forced to coexist with people they are not supposed to be coexisting, and it creates passive aggressiveness. So anyway, so let's go back to the body thing. So the body breaks apart when you stop moving. It does, literally does. You start losing muscle. You don't even notice it. You don't even notice. I used to be very muscled. I wasn't a bodybuilder, right? But yeah, I was very muscled, and it took like 20 years to lose it. Now it's gone, basically gone. And a thing I've noticed when I lost muscle, blood pressure immediately started having, effects. Some time to time, like once a month, my blood pressure is off. So I have to take a pill, you know. Maybe it has to do with the moon. I don't know. So uh, the blood pressure is off. So, and The muscle disappeared, and instead of muscle, my body compensated with building fat. If you don't store energy in muscle, the body will compensate and store energy in fat. It's either one or the other. Depending on your structure, if you are, because there's three types of people, archetypes, we call it. Mine is the long type of person, and then there's the one that is a bit more round, type of person, and there's the one that is more of like a strong man. There's three types and of archetypes in traditional, and I'm the long type in tradition. And the long type has way more difficulty in sustaining or maintaining muscle. The long line will lose the muscle a lot faster, and especially with age, and will have difficulty bringing it to normal. The strong men and the other ones that are a bit more round, those don't have any difficulty. The rounds, I mean, it already tells you they are round, right? They have muscle, but you don't see it. Yeah, it's covered with a layer. You think they are obese, but they're not. It's just covered with a layer. The muscle is hidden away. They are round. Their legs are wide, and their thighs are wide, and you think they're fat, but they're not. And then there's the strong men. Those are the easiest ones to gain muscle. They don't have to do much effort to gain muscle, and they stay muscle until old age. Yeah, it's difficult. It's quite weird. They can drink beer and stuff, and they don't get a beer belly and nothing. It's biological. It's incredible. The ones that are around, I can still remember. I had a school friend who was that type. He was very very round. He wasn't obese. He was like a strong man. It's not strong man. I'm sorry. I'm kind of mixing things now. Those guys that pick up huge stones. That's a strong man, right? Yeah, because it's the fat is pure energy. It's pure energy, and that those types are the strong man. The muscle guy, it's the bodybuilder or something like that. Yeah, the bodybuilder, they don't have much strength. They don't. They look big, but they don't have much strength compared to a construction worker. It's not even a comparison. You know. Um, anyway, sorry for the tangent again. So I noticed the body degenerates quite fast, especially after 35. The body starts degenerating quite fast if you don't move. And of course, it depends on your archetype um, as well. And insurances and institutions like the retirement thing, they actually calculate the span of their customers to be around between 5 and 10 years. They know the first 5 years the person in question is gonna live a nice happy life. They're gonna just sluggish on the couch and eat and drink, have a good life, at least a good 5 years. But after the 5 years, it starts going downhill, and all sorts of problems start showing up. The decay, right? The sudden stopping moving, and the sudden loss of muscle, and the gaining of weight, and the toxicity of the body, the raise of the blood pressure, etc., etc., etc. And it might lead to, departing the world. So they know when they do their calculations, it's between 5 and 10 years expectancy. That's how they calculate the retirement. People who work in those areas. Stopping is dying. You know, the the wisest, the wisest of them all don't ever stop. Don't ever stop. I remember while I was still on the working force, I met people that was 80 plus years old, and they were still active on the job. You know, their story was similar. They lived in apartments for most of their lives, and when retirement hit, they couldn't go, and spend the entire day in the apartment, or especially with the wife, in the apartment as well. So they rather stay and work. They rather stay and work, even though they weren't that much active. But again, the wisdom was there, the wisdom was there, and that could be very helpful, especially for the young people starting. I mean, I've had people working with me with a certain age, and I prefer the old guys because they were a lot calmer, wise, and things went smoothly. Um, I didn't like to work with nervous people that just open their mouths for the sake of opening their mouths. Wise people, they open their mouths when they have something to say. The stupid, they open their mouths because they have to say something. You know, they're constantly yeah 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 yeah. This nervous dialogue constantly. Yeah, well, anyway. So lately, because I am lately I because I'm sedentary, I figured this was out of intuition. Later, I got confirmation bias. Not really. It was intuitive. I I figured I'm gonna sleep as early as possible because my sleep patterns was all messed up. You know, I went to sleep and I would wake up an hour later. And then I went back to sleep 2 hours later, and I would sleep for 3 4 hours. It wasn't smooth sleep. I would wake up more tired than I would go to bed, and this went on for years. I don't know. Lots of things happen. You kind of lose track of things, and and if you have health problems, you are always stressed. The body's always stressed, and you don't really think clearly. In the first years, at least, you don't think clearly. You can't think clearly because you're going through something that is not normal, and you're trying to figure out your place. You're trying to deal with it, but there's no dealing with it. You have to accept it. There's no dealing when you're in these positions. So it is hard. Anyway, I figured I had to go to sleep as early as possible. So in winter, it's like 7 in the evening, 19 hours, you know, 1900 hours, and I'm in bed in winter. In summer, of course, it's 2100 hours that I go to bed because I go to bed at sundown. I figured let's go to bed at sundown and then sleep as much as it is possible. And I figured that the first 4 hours after sundown are the best, hours of sleep. I'm talking of, it's anecdotal. I'm not telling you what to do. Yeah, it's anecdotal. So I figured, okay, the first 5 hours are the best. I would wake up, even if I would wake up, around 2 in the morning. I would wake up and okay, I've slept for 5 6 hours. Sometimes, 5 6 hours. I'm like, whoa, that's great, and it felt completely different than before. You know, I didn't wake up as tired as I did before when my sleep was all messed up. Then I got a confirmation bias. This lady was talking about nutrition and sleep and stuff like that. And she said, go to bed early on an empty stomach. I started doing that later. Going bed early on an empty stomach will help you lose weight because cortisol, you know, stops producing, and melatonin starts being producing instead. Melatonin and insulin don't go together. Melatonin and insulin don't go together. If you go to bed on a full stomach, insulin is going to be produced and melatonin at the same time. So there's going to be incompatibility. Yeah. You're not going to be sleeping well at all, you know. So go to bed on an empty stomach, 4 hours before going to bed, stop eating. So going bed on an empty stomach. Because of the insulin. Why 2 in the morning? Why 2 in the morning? Why do I wake up around 2:30, 3, sometimes 3 in the morning? Why? Well, this woman was saying, "Oh, it's normal that you wake up around those times because that's when the body starts producing once more cortisol. The body starts little by little waking up at 2 in the morning. Maybe it's because geographic or astrological, because the sun is making his comeback to this part of the world. And maybe it gives a sign, to the body to wake up or start at least waking up little by little. That's why it's important to go to bed as early as possible. And it's inevitable that the body at around through between 2 and 3 in the morning starts producing cortisol and adrenaline. you know so the most important meal would be breakfast, and maybe have two and a half meals a day, and stop eating around 1700 hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours before going to bed. And that would improve. I mean, it's working for me. I'm not giving any advice or telling you what to do. It's this is just purely anecdotal. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking now. Have a nice day.